ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति 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 हरि ॐ। We are now studying the fourth sutra of the Brahma Sutras, Tattu Samanvayat. And here the sutra has started with an introductory commentary by Shankaracharya, Bhagavad-pada Shankaracharya, who refers to the maxim or another sutra of the Purva Mimamsa or Purva Mimamsa philosophy, who believe that unless a particular Vedic statement, any Vedic statement, makes us accept or reject something, or asks us to do something or not to do something, that is, it is of the nature of an injunction or prohibition. Unless a particular statement is of that kind, it is of no use, it is purposeless. So every Vedic statement should either ask us to do something or to refrain from doing something. It should help in getting the Purushartha. Here Purushartha means the purpose of life, but purpose of life is performing Vedic rituals according to Mimamsa philosophy. So one example is also given that in the Vedas there is a statement that he cried, Saha Arodit, he cried. Now here this refers to a particular incident which has been described in the Taittiriya Samhita. The incident is like this. There was a war of Asuras and Devas. Say gods and demons, war was there. And for this war, all the gods were going. And because in the war, there is a great possibility of losing one's valuables. That is why all the gods, they decided that they will deposit their valuables with Agni, fire god. So basically they used him as a cloakroom. And they deposited all their valuables with him. And then they went to do the battle or fight the war with the Asuras. So the war went on for some time. And finally the gods or Devas, they became victorious. They won the war. After winning the war, they returned. And when they returned, obviously they came to their deposit in the cloakroom, that is fire god Agni. And in the meantime, Agni had developed an attachment towards all these valuables. So he was not letting go of these valuables. And so gods, other devas, they had to use force to take back the valuables. And finally, Agni had no other thing to do, no other choice but to give the valuables. And so then he started crying. And so that is what Saha Arodit means, he cried. He started crying, oh, all valuables are gone. Now the idea is that this statement that he started crying does not ask us to either accept anything or reject anything. Because it's a statement, obvious statement. It's a descriptive statement. And that all these things happened. They don't directly tell us they don't give us any command of injunction or prohibition. So what to make of this statement? That's the point. what to make of this statement. So Mimamsakas, they are quite liberal, as we have already seen. They not only say that if a particular statement is not asking us to do any Vedic ritual, then it is purposeless. Amnayasya kriyarthatvat atadarthanam anarthakyam atadarthanam. So it is anartha or purposeless, whatever is not having the meaning of doing Vedic rituals, because the purpose of Vedas is to do Vedic rituals. So though this is the general maxim, this is the sutra, one of the sutras in the Jaimini Mimamsa Sutras, but the Mimamsakas are liberal in the sense they say, okay, we can accommodate statements which are not directly telling us to perform a particular Vedic ritual, but which are auxiliary or ancillary or subsidiary to the Vedic ritual, because they are talking about who should perform the Vedic ritual or who is the deity of the Vedic ritual. In such manner, they are talking about things which are connected to the Vedic ritual. So that we accept. Or if that particular passage is some contemplation, some kind of meditation, some kind of worship, that also we accept. So here in this particular passage, where this description about the war between gods and asuras, devas and asuras, and how devas deposited their valuables with Agni, and how upon returning all these, or upon the devas taking back all the valuables, Agni god, the fire god, cried, and so he was called Rudra. Means because he cried, Arodit, so his name became Rudra, one of the names of Agni. And so this silver Rudra, so the purpose of this particular statement is that silver should not be given as dakshina. That is the idea. Silver should not be given as dakshina. If you give silver as dakshina, then within 1 year, somebody will cry in that house. That is the idea. So though explicitly that particular passage does not tell us to not do any work, the implied meaning is that one should not give in dakshina, that is as an offering, silver. So similarly, there may be many passages which are indirectly supporting a particular Vedic ritual that we can accept. For this example was given. Now, that particular sutra, fourth sutra is being explained, Tattu Samanvayat. As I have already told in the last discussion, that this sutra will occupy a lot of space, more than all the previous 3 sutras. In fact, previous 3 sutras put together, what discussion was there, little more than that, this one sutra will have. Because here Shankaracharya, Bhagavad-pada Shankaracharya, he is setting aside other philosophical standpoints. Tat tu samanvayat. This is the sutra. But that because of harmony. Because of harmony. Harmony among what? Harmony among the sentences. Sentences in what? Upanishads. So the Upanishadic sentences or Vedantic sentences are harmonious. In what? In stating that Brahman exists. In that they are harmonious, or in stating that Brahman is the source of all the scriptures, or the scriptures are the means of knowledge of Brahman. In stating these things, the Vedas are harmonious, or Upanishads are harmonious. So here, Shankaracharya explains in his commentary, he says, Tu Shabdaha Purva Paksha Vyavrityartha. So tu word tu means but. That word is used in the with the purpose, artha, with the purpose of vyavritti, refuting or setting aside Purva Paksha. Purva Paksha, opponent view. Tad Brahma. And what is the meaning of Tat? Tat is Brahma. Sarvajnam, Sarvashakti, which is omniscient and omnipotent. Jagat Utpatti Sthiti Laya Karanam, and which is the Karanam, cause of Jagat, of the universe, Utpatti, origin of the universe, Sthiti, sustenance of the universe, and Laya, destruction of the universe. Vedanta Shastrat eva avagamyate. Eva, indeed, only through Vedanta Shastra. Vedanta Shastrat, only through Vedanta Shastra. That means the scriptures of Vedanta. That means Upanishads. Only through the Upanishads do we avagamyate, come to know of Brahman being omniscient, omnipotent, and being the cause of the origin, sustenance, and destruction of this universe. Katham, how is this? You can say that it is only through Vedanta or Upanishads that we are coming to know this. Samanvayat, because of harmony. Because of harmony, because of the Upanishadic statements harmoniously or unanimously telling this. All the Upanishadic statements talk about this in one voice. Sarveshu hi Vedanteshu Vakyani Tatparyena Etasya Arthasya Pratipadakatvena Samanugatani. Sarveshu hi, indeed, all the Vedanteshu Vakyani, all the sentences or passages of Vedanta, that is the Upanishads, Tatparyena, by their meaning, Etasya Arthasya, of this very meaning, Pratipadakatvena, are explaining or expounding or clarifying Samanugatani. And so they are Sama Anugatani. They are all same in this manner. Sama Anugatani means they are all pointing to the same direction in this context. What is the context? That Brahman is the cause of the origin, sustenance, and destruction of this universe. Brahman is the cause of the origin or birth, sustenance, and destruction or death of this universe. All the Upanishadic sentences or passages tell the same thing. So now passages are quoted to prove that all the different passages of Upanishads talk of the same thing. First, the Chandogya Upanishad is quoted from the famous section where Shvetaketu gets instruction from his father. Sadeva Somya idamagra asid ekameva advitiyam. Somya means, oh beautiful looking one. That is what it means, Somya, or dear one. That means father is addressing the son. Oh dear one, oh dear. Sad eva idam agra asid. In the beginning, agra, in the beginning, sad eva asid. There was this only, there was only existence. There was only existence. Only existence alone was there in the beginning. Ekameva advitiyam. This is one. Ekameva. In English, Indians, we do one thing. We always put only. We like, whenever we talk in English, we like to put one. Only. It is like that only. We are like that only. Only that is the thing. That is the only thing, you know. So we will put only wherever we want, because we are not to be blamed actually, because this only is there in all Indian languages starting from Sanskrit. So wherever you see this he takes another form in Hindi, he. वैसा ही तो है. It is like that only. In all languages, Tamil, Malayalam, Kannada, Telugu, you go to any language, that one we want to stress. If you just say, in English, if you say, we are like that, that is sufficient. But somehow an Indian will not get satisfaction. No, we are like that. Something is missing in that sense. We are like that only. Now it is correct. So that is why here, Sadeva Somya Idamagram Asit Ekameva. You see, if you carefully follow, Vedanta Shastrat Eva. Ekameva. Eva means only. So we want to emphasize Vedanta Shastrat Eva. It is only through the Vedantic scriptures. Only. So that is what we have transported into English also. Only. So Vedanta Shastrat Eva. Similarly, Ekameva Advitiyam. So the better translation will be, indeed, it is one and without any second. One without a second. So indeed should be the translation. Indeed. And also when Indian texts are translated like this, there are so many indeeds because of this eva, he, etc. Ekameva Advitiyam. So, oh dear one, or oh beautiful looking one, Shvetaketu is addressed by his father. Sadeva idamagra asit. In the beginning, only existence alone was there. Ekameva Advitiyam. Sadeva. So existence, only existence was there, does not give much meaning to a native English reader. So we have to say existence alone was there. That is the proper translation. So existence alone was there. Nothing else was there. Ekameva Advitiyam. One and without a second. Means Advitiyam. There is no second. There is only one. That is Chandogya Upanishad. Then Aitareya Upanishad says, Atmava idam eka eva agra asit. In the beginning, only this one Atma was there. Then in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Tadetad Brahma Apurvam. Tad, that, etad, this. That means this very. This is another word we are very fond of, Indians, very. Wherever we want to, we don't say more beautiful, etc. We want to somehow go into hyperboles. Very beautiful. And also for better usage, we will stretch it. Very beautiful, like that. So, like very, because that is also this translation of Eva. So, very beautiful. So, here it is told, Tadetat, this means this very, Brahma Apurvam. This Brahma is Apurvam, means it does not have anything before it. Purvam means it does not have anything before it. That means it does not have any cause. Then Anaparam, it does not have, it is not something which comes after. Aparam means it's not an effect. It has no cause. It is not an effect. And Anantaram, it does not have Anta Bahya. Usually, wherever there is a difference in space, suppose we construct, there is a ground, and on that ground we construct a building. Now we have created a difference, boundary within space. So if you are within the building, inside the building. If you are outside the building, you are outside the building. So interior, exterior. So Anantaram, Bahyam, like that. So here, Brahman does not have an interior. It does not have a Bahyam, Abahyam. Means it does not have Antaram, Anantaram. Anantaram means it does not have Antaram. It does not have an interior. Abahyam means it does not have an exterior. Because there is no difference in space. Ayam Atma, this self, Brahma, Sarva Anubhuhu. This Brahma is Sarva Anubhuhu. This is the Anubhuhu, experiencer of Sarvam, of all. It experiences everything because there is nothing to experience. That is the idea. It experiences everything means there is nothing to experience. That is what it experiences. Brahma eva, Brahman alone. This is from Mundaka Upanishad. Brahma eva idam amritam purastat. So purastat, in front of you or before you. Brahma eva idam amritam. This is what is there in front of you. This is Brahma eva. It is Brahman alone, nothing else. And it is amritam, immortal. Ityadini. Such passages. That is, all the passages. Sarveshu hi vedanteshu vakyani tatparyena etasya arthasya pratipadakatvena samanugatani. So this meaning, what is the meaning? The meaning that this world, this prapancha, this universe is born or has its origin, the cause of this origin of this universe, or the sustenance of this universe and the death of this universe is Brahman. So this meaning is contained in all the Vedantic sentences. By their meaning, they want to tell only this. Their intention is only to tell this, and they are Samanugatani. They are unanimous in that. So that is what is proven by quoting all these passages. Now, Shankaracharya wants to set aside. He wants to refute what the Purva Paksha said. Purva Paksha, that means the opponent, in our case, in this particular context, it is Mimamsa. Mimamsa philosophers, they have told something that you see, unless a particular Vedantic sentence, unless a particular Vedic sentence talks about karma, talks about how to do a Vedic ritual, or talks about things which are connected to a Vedic ritual, or talks about a contemplation or meditation, unless a particular Vedic sentence talks about any of these things, that Vedic sentence is useless. It is purposeless. It is useless. That is what is being told. Objection by Purva Paksha here, Mimamsa. So that is being refuted by Shankaracharya. He says, Nacha tad gatanam padanam Brahma Swarupa Vishaye Nishchite Samanvaye Avagamyamane Arthantara Kalpana Yukta Shrutahani Ashruta Kalpana Prasangat. Nacha. So further, what does he say? Tad gatanam padanam. That means, tad means in those passages. Gatanam padanam, occurring padanam, words. So of the words which are occurring in those Upanishadic passages, Brahma Swarupa Vishaye Nishchite, when one has properly understood that these words which are occurring, which have been just now quoted from the Aitareya Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad and Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, etc. When such words are occurring in the Upanishads, when we know that they are Brahma Swarupa Vishaye Nishchite, when their content or their subject is about the nature of Brahman, when that has been samanvaye avagamyamane, when it has been properly understood, avagamyamane, properly understood, then na arthantara kalpana yukta. As I was telling you in the previous discussion, somehow na we want to put it in the beginning. Though that na will come much later, we want to make it very clear. We don't want to waste time. Na. That means what you're saying will not happen. That is, we are not accepting that. No. So suppose you go to your boss and ask for a leave, you say no. That's all. Then that boss will give you an explanation. Why no? First no or yes. So that tradition also probably we are getting it from the commentarial tradition. Bhashya parampara. First tell. Don't waste time. No. No, it is not going to happen. Why? Because Tadgatanam padanam Brahma Swarupa Vishaye Nishchite Samanvaye Avagamyamane. Once you have understood that Avagamyamane, on understanding that Tadgatanam padanam, of the words that occur in the Upanishads or the Vedanta, Brahma Swarupa Vishaye Nishchite. Once you understand that the Vishaya or the content or the subject matter of these words are the nature of Brahman. So they are talking about the nature of Brahman. When you know that, Arthantara Kalpana na yukta. It is not yukta, it is not plausible, or it is not proper, or it is not logical, it is not rational to have Arthantara Kalpana. To have a Kalpana, that means to impose Arthantara, a different meaning on these words, or to imagine a different meaning of these words. That cannot be done. Why? If you do that, then there will be a problem. There will be a problem. What is the problem? There will be a fallacy. What is the fallacy? Shruti Hani Ashruta Kalpana. Means you Hani reject what has been Shruti, what has been directly heard. That means what has been directly said. What has been directly said, that you are not accepting. And Ashruta Kalpana, and you are imagining or assuming what has not been said at all. What has not been said at all. So you are not accepting what is being said, and you are imagining what has not been said at all. I just now remembered an interesting incident which happened. A particular person wrote a book, and that book had some content. And that book was titled in a manner to catch the attention of people. Like there are books, how to make money, etc. So like that, such kind of title was given, very catchy title. And even now this book sells well, and I really doubt how many people actually read it. Many people are content only seeing the title. They will be like, oh, how to make money. They read it and I have got money. Like that they think. Similarly, this happened. So another person was invited by the author of the book to introduce this book. But the other person, because that person was very intelligent, did not talk about this book so much, because there was not much to talk about this book. And that person went on giving talks, because he was a very good orator, went on giving talks. And this person who had invited the other person, that is person B, was invited to give talks about this book. Person A was the author. Got fed up. I have invited and I have asked to give lectures. Now this person is rarely talking or hardly talking about my book. So after the end of the lecture, this person used to stand up and say, so what do you understand? Whatever Mr. B has said, the gist of that lecture is that you have to read this book. Like that. So in the first lecture, somehow there was some connection with what B told and what A's book was about. So B said, okay, let that person be happy. Second lecture, there was no connection at all because now B became more careful. So no connection at all between the content of A's book and B's lecture. Even then, Mr. A got up and said after the end of the lecture that whatever you heard, that directly means that you have to read this book. So now B became more careful, ultra careful. What he did not at all go anywhere near the topic of the book. Like if it is talking about chemistry, he talked about something else. He was talking about something else only. Nowhere near. He was talking about something else. And if you did not realize, I said something else only. Okay, that is inbuilt in our language. Nothing can be done. He was talking about something, a completely different topic. Even then at the end of the lecture, as was his habit, Mr. A got up and said, whatever Mr. B said means that you have to read this book. So that is what is called by Shruta Hani Ashruta Kalpana. What is directly said, you are ignoring it and you are bent on saying that what is not said is what said. So that cannot happen. Why? Because all the Upanishadic passages are talking about this Brahman being the cause of the origin, the sustenance and the death of the universe. Then how can you bring something else into this? You cannot. Directly somebody is telling you, you're a foolish person. So making a very strong face and very stern look and telling foolish person. Then you say, no, that person is only kidding. No, directly it has been told to you. Why are you thinking like that? Why are you in this fool's paradise? That person is kidding. So that is what Shruti Hani Ashruta Kalpana should not happen. Further, Nacha Tesham Kartru Devatadi Swarupa Parata Avasiyate Tat Kenakam Pashyet Ityadi Kriya Karaka Phala Nirakarana Shrutehe. Among one of the saving graces given by Mimamsa philosophers, that means one of the grace given by, one of the exemption given by Mimamsa philosophers was that if a particular Vedic sentence talks about the Kartru, that is the agent, a person who has to do a particular Vedic ritual, Devata, deity, etc., and so on and so forth. That means if it talks about how the yajna or ritual has to be done, who has to do it, who is the deity, etc., then we will accept it as something which has purpose, and so it will not be a purposeless sentence. But here, Shankaracharya refutes that thing also. He says, Nacha, neither Tesham means of those Upanishadic passages, Kartru Devatadi Swarupa Parata, of it being connected to teaching, Kartru Devatadi Swarupa, connected with the nature of, Swarupa means nature, Kartru Devata Adi. Kartru means agent, that means one who will do, Karta, one who will perform the Vedic ritual, and the deity, Devata of the Vedic ritual, Adi, and some such similar things which are connected, ancillary or auxiliary or subsidiary of that Vedic ritual. Avasiyate. Because then it is said that it is, you cannot say that the Upanishadic sentences which are not directly talking about Vedic rituals might have the purpose of talking about the doer of the Vedic ritual, the agent, or the deity of the Vedic ritual, or some such other thing connected to the Vedic ritual. Why? Because it is not possible. Why? Avasiyate. But they might not be, it cannot be determined. Na avasiyate. It might not be determined what the deity, the agent, and the other things connected, with the ritual, that might not be the purpose or the meaning of these passages. Why? Because tat kena kam pashyet. There, by kena, by what means kam pashyet, who could see. Then tat kena kam pashyet, what means who could see. Ityadi kriya karaka phala nirakarana shrutehe. And so in such manner we find Shruti, that is, we find the passage talking about, the Shruti means Vedic passage, talking about kriya karaka phala nirakarana. That is totally setting aside, nirakarana, setting aside kriya karaka phala. It is setting aside kriya, actions, karaka, the cause of actions or the conditions that lead to actions, and phala, result. So both the cause of actions and the results, all these three. So both actions and cause of actions, and apart from that, result of the actions, all these three are set aside, or they have been refuted. They are nirakarana. They are not accepted. They are simply denied. Nirakarana in the passage like tat kena kam pashyet. So by whom and who is seeing, or by what means who is seeing. So the idea is, okay, you are saying that some Upanishadic passages or Vedic passages might be talking about the Kartru, that is, who is doing a particular Vedic ritual and what is the deity of a particular Vedic ritual, etc. You might be saying. But that could not be determined, or that could not be accepted. That cannot be accepted. Why we cannot accept that? Because Kartrudevataadi Swarupa Parata na avasiyate. It cannot be, it might not be determined that these Upanishadic passages are talking about, or they are connected, Parata, they are connected or related to the nature of the agency, nature of the agent, or nature of the deity, or nature of some such other thing connected to a ritual. Why? If that is the case, then why would the Upanishadic passages have such statements like Tat Kena Kam Pashyet? So this is only one example, Ityadi, in this manner. So there are many other statements like that. So Tat Kena Kam Pashyet, by what means, who saw that? So here the means are also questioned. One who is seeing is also questioned. In Shweta Sutra Upanishad also, not Shweta Sutra Upanishad, while talking with Shvetaketu in Chandogya Upanishad, his father asks, can you, do you know that which cannot be known? Do you know that which cannot be known, etc. Such questions Shvetaketu's father asks. So all the cause and the results, the actions, everything is constantly questioned in these passages. How can you say that these passages are talking about the deity and the agent of a particular Vedic ritual or any Vedic ritual? Because what are they doing? Kriya Karaka Phala Nirakarana. They are simply denying or refuting Kriya. They are saying that there is nobody who does anything. There is nobody who is the doer, nobody who does anything, and nobody who is there who is the cause of anything, and there is no result. That is the kind of statements which are seen in the Upanishads. So they are Kriya Karaka Phala Nirakarana Shrutehe. These Shruti, these scriptural passages or Vedic passages, particularly Upanishadic passages, are Nirakarana, setting aside or refuting Kriya Karaka Phala. They are refuting all the actions, they're refuting all the causes, and they're also refuting all the results. So how do you say that they are talking about the agent of a ritual, or they are talking about the deity of ritual? Also, there was another objection that, see, there is a particular thing, you are saying there is an entity called Brahman, and you are saying this Brahman is an eternally existing entity. If Brahman is an eternally existing entity, then why should you have Shastra as the means of knowledge? Why should you have Vedas as the means of knowledge? Just like apple is already there on the table, you don't need any particular philosophy to understand that. You can use Pratyaksha Pramana. You can use direct perception. So why do you need scriptures to prove something which is already existing? That was one objection by Mimamsakas. That also is answered here. Shankaracharya says, Nacha parinishthita vastu swarupatve api pratyakshadi vishayatvam brahmanah tattvam masi iti brahma atma bhavasya shastramantarena anavagamyamanatvat. Very simple. He says further, parinishthita vastu swarupatve api. Though Brahman is of the nature of parinishthita vastu, the nature of an vastu entity which is there, parinishthita, which is already existing. Though it is by nature an entity that is already existing, even then, pratyakshadi vishayatvam na brahmanah pratyakshadi vishayatvam. Brahman is not an object of or the subject of the means of knowledge like pratyaksha and so on. Pratyaksha and so on means the first 5 means of knowledge. Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, Anupalabdhi, like that. Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, Anupalabdhi, like that. All these 5 pramanas, they are not referring, or they cannot refer to Brahman. So Brahman is not the object of these first 5 pramanas. It is the object of the last pramana, that is Shabda pramana. That is, in our case, it is Upanishads. Upanishads or Vedas. So that is the object of that, because only in the Vedas, Brahman is talked of. That is also clarified here. Tattvamasi iti Brahma Atma Bhavasya Shastram Antarena Anavagamya Manatvat. Because this Shastram Antarena, other than Shastras, other than Upanishads, it is Anavagamya Manatva. Anavagamya Mana means it cannot be understood. Other than Upanishads or other than Vedas, it cannot be understood. What cannot be understood? That Brahma Atma Bhavasya. Brahman and Atman are same. Brahman and Atman are same. That cannot be understood other than through Shastram, through Vedas. It cannot be understood other than Shastram, other than the Vedas. It is not possible to understand. So Brahma, so that is the example is given, Tattvamasi. Again, Shvetaketu's father tells Shvetaketu, you are that. Tattvamasi. 9 times he says this. And so finally Shvetaketu realizes. So imagine Shvetaketu had to listen to 9 times. We have listened so many times, nothing we are realizing. You are that. So this you are that. That is, Brahman and Atman, they are identical. They are identical. It is not that Brahman becomes Atman or Atman becomes Brahman. From the very beginning, they are identical. Rope and snake are identical because there is no snake. Only rope is there. Similarly, Brahman and Atman are identical because there is no Atman, only Brahman is there. So they are identical. What you are thinking to be Atman is actually Brahman. What you are thinking to be snake is actually rope. It never changed. Brahman never actually became Atman. It is because of ignorance that you think that Brahman has become Atman. Rope never actually became snake. It is because of darkness or again ignorance that you think that rope has become snake. Nothing actually happened there. There was no transformation. So Brahma Atma Aikya means Brahman and Atman are one and the same thing. There is no difference. You don't prove something. There is no chemical reaction. There is no reaction. There is no chemistry, physics or anything. Nothing happened there. Brahman is always Atman. Atman is always Brahman. Tattvamasi. You are that. So why are we saying you, that, etc.? These distinctions came because of ignorance. And it is because of ignorance that Adhyasa or Avidya Jnana came. So these superimpositions happen. And so we think that Brahman has become something. Brahman has not become anything. Atman has also not become anything. Actually, Brahman and Atman are same. This is the idea here. But this idea, Shastram Antarena Anavagamya Manatvat, it is not understood because it is not understood from any other source other than the scriptures. Therefore, though Parinishtita Vastu Swarupatve api, though Brahman is of the nature of an already existing entity, even then it is difficult to know about Brahman other than from the Vedas. That is why we don't accept that the means of knowledge, that is the first 5 means of knowledge, like Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, Arthapatti, Anupalabdhi. Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, Arthapatti, Anupalabdhi. These 5 means of knowledge are not capable, or these 5 means of knowledge cannot give us the knowledge of Brahman, or that the fact that Brahman and Atman are same, one and the same thing. That knowledge is not possible to be got from these 5 means of knowledge. Yattu heya upadeya rahitatvat upadesha anarthyakam iti na esha doshah heya upadeya shunya brahma atmata avagamat eva sarva klesha prahanat purushartha siddhehe. Now Shankaracharya comes to the other objection. The objection is heya upadeya rahitatvat upadesha anarthakyam. Yattu regarding, as far as heya upadeya rahitatvat upadesha anarthakyam iti, as far as the upadesha or instruction or teaching of Vedas becoming anarthakyam, futile or purposeless, because heya upadeya rahitatvat, because it does not have heya, something which has to be rejected, and upadeya, something which has to be accepted. Because it does not have something which has to be rejected and something which has to be accepted, upadesha anarthakyam, the futility of teaching, iti, if we, that as regards yattu, regarding that kind of objection, that you see a particular teaching or statement of the Upanishads is futile or purposeless because it does not say what has to be rejected or what has to be accepted, then na esha dosha hai, that is not a defect at all. Dosha hai, defect, esha, this, so na, not at all. So this is not a defect at all. Why? Heya upadeya shunya brahma atmata avagamat eva sarva klesha prahanat purushartha siddhehe. Because eva, only from, or only from avagamat, only from the understanding or the realization, that Brahma Atmata, Brahman is Atman. So only when one realizes Brahman to be Atman, what kind of Brahman? Heya upadeya shunya Brahma. Brahman which is shunya, devoid of heya and upadeya. Heya means that which has to be rejected. Upadeya means that which has to be accepted. So that means Brahman which is not something which has to be accepted or something which has to be rejected. Why? Because it is parinishthita vastu. It is something which is already existing. Something which is already existing need not be accepted or need not be rejected. Brahman is of that nature. Even though Brahman is of that nature, sarva klesha prahanat, only when all klesha or all suffering or all dukkha, sorrow or pain is prahanat, sarva prahanat, it is completely destroyed. How? By the avagamat, by the realization of Brahma Atmata, of Brahman being Atman. That Brahman is Atman. The moment you put on a light and you see, oh, rope is snake. Snake was all the time rope. Then you get knowledge. Similarly, the moment you get the knowledge that you are Brahman, then you understand that all along you are Brahman. You did not become something non-Brahman and then become Brahman. You are all along Brahman. With that knowledge, all suffering goes. Shokam tarati atmavid. Chandogya Upanishad says, Atmavid, the knower of Brahman or knower of Atman, Shokam tarati, transcends sorrow, crosses sorrow. So Shokam tarati Atmavid. So Purushartha siddhehe, by there what happens? Siddhi happens, accomplishment happens of what? Purusha Artha, human goal. What is the Parama Purusha Artha? Moksha. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Moksha means what? Atyantika Dukkha Nivritti, complete cessation of all suffering. So Sarva Klesha Prahana means destruction of all kleshas or all pains, including attending Brahma Sutra class. All pains will go away. That is Sarva Klesha Prahana. That is the ultimate goal of a human being, moksha. And that goal is attained only when you know that Brahman is Atman. When you know yourself to be Aham Brahmasmi, I am that, I am Brahman. When you know that, and that Brahman, what Brahman? Which is free from, which is Shunya, free from something which has to be rejected, Heya, something which has to be accepted, Upadeya. So that is why we don't accept this statement or this standpoint that if a particular Vedic statement is not talking about something which has to be accepted or rejected, then it is useless. Because you are saying that doing Vedic ritual is the Purushartha. We are saying no, moksha is Purushartha. And if moksha is Purushartha, by knowing that which cannot be accepted or rejected, which is an already existing entity, that is Brahman, one attains the Purushartha, the final goal of human existence, that is moksha. So today we will stop here. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Are there any questions? Any questions? Smriti, any questions are there?
No, Swamiji, there are no questions.
Okay. So if anyone has any questions afterwards also, you can feel free to write in the email. You can drop me an email or you can post the questions in the WhatsApp group. Okay. Because it's possible that now you don't have any question. Later on, when you go back to the text, sometimes some questions may come. And also, there are only two kinds of people who do not have any questions. One who know everything, they already known, understood. The other one, anyway, who have not understood anything. So it depends on you, which group you belong to. But anyway, if either group you belong, there's no problem. But if you belong to the third group who have questions, please feel free to ask them. Because now we are entering into a Brahma Sutra as a polemical text. Polemical text means where there is a lot of argument and there is a lot of logical arguments, logical standpoints being presented, they being refuted. So in such texts, it is only natural that a person gets questions. And the whole idea of Brahma Sutra is to affirm or reaffirm our knowledge of Upanishads or our knowledge of the scriptures. So to make it firmer, to make it strong. So then one has to also, apart from the objections, etc., presented by Acharya Shankaracharya, one has to also think in one's own mind new objections or other kinds of questions. Because we are living in a different time, it's quite possible to have different types of questions. So one can think and then one can ask to oneself. If you get the answer, wonderful. If you don't get answer to such questions which you are yourself raising, you can put it in the group and we can also discuss or we can think about those questions.
There is
after
one
that
question, Swamiji.
So so much talk actually bore fruit. Somebody has come up with a question. Very good. What
No,
is the
no,
question, Kanchan?
that is not a question as such. Actually, a lot has been written about the Brahman, so that sometimes that confuses reader, because Brahman is with attributes, without attributes. Then the Brahman is also somewhere is referred to as a Purushottama. So exactly how do we understand what this Brahman is? Because more we read about
Very
it, more we
simple.
get confused.
You see, lot has been written about Brahman. What is the? I don't accept that lot has been written. Much has been written about Brahman. What is the other thing about which more has been written? Can you tell, Kanchan?
Maya, yes. A lot is written on Maya also, yes, more than Brahman.
Okay. I'm talking for normal people because this is something which I hear a lot. Sometimes I give a talk, then they say, okay, Swamiji, for normal people like us, means you are abnormal anyway, but for normal people like us, what is the thing like that? So what is the one topic which has been written on by everybody? Huh? Maybe Kanchan is afraid. She has known the answer already, but she is afraid whether I should tell it. Huh?
No, can't guess it.
About love.
Is it
love? Yes.
About love, so much has been written. More than anything written on Brahman or Maya, more has been written about love. But still people are writing. Okay, somebody says that for you, I will bring down moon. Somebody says your eyes are like moon. Some totally illogical things are being written. Very logical things are also being written. You know, what is the common feature among these two things? They are experiential. That is the common feature. They are experiential. They are based on experience. Anything that is based on experience will have different and quite possibly contradictory views about that thing. Okay. So it can be something like a food also. So somebody like mango, it can be mango. Some people like mango, some people like mango, sliced mango, some people like mango juice, some people like mango shake. Some people like mango jam. Okay. So there are different people talking about different things all connected with mango. Why? Because it is experiential. There cannot be one authoritative statement about mango. It is not possible. It is not possible because that experience is different for every person. Even if two people were to like mango, they will have different experiences. And when those people will try to communicate those experiences, it will come out in a different way. That's why Sri Ramakrishna poignantly said, you cannot defile Brahman. Means you cannot make it uchishta. In Hindi, they say jhuta. So jhuta means not a liar, means you cannot make it uchishta. You cannot defile it. Why? The moment somebody starts talking about Brahman, it is already not Brahman. Because Brahman cannot be touched by words. In fact, no experience can be touched by words. That's the beauty there. That's why I compared it with love. No experience can be, even sensory experience cannot be touched by words. You can at best explain, but it is not just a chemical reaction. You go to a doctor or a neuroscientist, they will say, oh, all your sensory experiences are all chemical reaction. Very good. Then after giving this lecture that all the experiences, sense experiences are chemical reaction, what will this neuroscientist do? During that conference or in the middle of the conference, go to the restaurant where the lunch is arranged and pick out different things which he or she likes. So though that neuroscientist knows that this is a chemical reaction in the brain, but still there is a preference for a particular chemical reaction. So experiences cannot be explained. That's why they are called anirvachaniya. So it was not a question, but as any speaker would do, any chance to speak, one should not give up. So I gave a small talk about that. It's not a question. I understood. It was just a comment, but there is no, that's why Sri Ramakrishna says that everybody is thinking that their time is correct. Their watch is correct because they think that their perspective is correct, but there is no one correct perspective. Because if it is an experience, it is an experience. That's all. The question is more, have you experienced or have you not experienced? That would be the right question. So the question would not be what is Brahman. The question would be, have you experienced Brahman? Then, so we don't know what is Brahman, but we know what Brahman experience brings about. So you see, in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna is asked by Arjuna. Arjuna is asking Shri Krishna, what are the qualities of a person who has realized Brahman? Sthita pragyasya ka bhasha. So what it brings about, we know. It brings about complete cessation of suffering. It brings about complete removal of doubts. So if you claim yourself to be a knower of Brahman, but at the same time you have doubts about anything, that means you are not a knower of Brahman. So this is how you, by inferring, you know whether you have got the knowledge of Brahman. By describing, you cannot tell whether you have got the knowledge of Brahman, because description of every knower of Brahman will be different.
Yeah, got it.
So, okay, I don't see any questions. So, as I told you, please feel free to post your questions on the group or send an email. So, Smriti, we can end, right?
Yes, Swamiji, the group is not open for questions, so they can send an email.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, group, one cannot post in the group. So one can send email, and email in the group itself, you will find the post where email ID where you can send the email. There will be a post. So to that, you can send emails. And sorry, in the group, you cannot post, but you can send the emails.
Swamiji, namaste.
Namaste.
Can I ask a question, Swamiji?
Yeah, please shall ask. Yeah.
When this harmony is being talked about, Swamiji, are they referring to Vedantic texts primarily, or all the sentences in Shastras? For example, the earlier part of Vedas, they talk, there are different deities, are talked about. While the Upanishads talk about primarily about Brahman and Atma. So that is my question.
So in the Vedas, throughout the Vedas, there are texts which talk about the identity of Brahman and Atma. They are not necessarily only in the Aranyaka portion. Some are there in the Samhita portion too. Some are there in the Brahmana portion too. So throughout the Vedas, this identity of Atman and Brahman is talked of. More it is there in the Aranyaka portion. Predominantly in Aranyaka portion, these type of texts are there, which are called Jnana Kanda. But these type of sentences are also found elsewhere also in the Vedas. So that is why when Shankaracharya says it is there everywhere, or the sutra says Samanvaya, that means harmoniously or unanimously they are talking of, we can take the whole Vedas. Need not be only one portion, whole Vedas.
Swamiji, another question is like in Vedanta, in Upanishads, there are texts which talk about non-duality predominantly, that one can accept that. But there are sentences about giving a different interpretation. So even you have also talked about the thing like Swami Vivekananda has said text torturing and all that thing. When Advaitic scholars are talking about the thing, they are like when it comes to other sorts of texts, they have to sort of have a convoluted meaning. So is it? I have heard somewhere that these Brahma Sutras are have been created to dispel some confusion and confusion regarding the this Swarupa of Brahman. Is it true? That is, what's your opinion, Swamiji?
No, Brahma Sutra, the purpose of Brahma Sutra is to establish Vedanta. Now, when we say Vedanta, it does not only mean Advaita Vedanta, as you might be already knowing. It also includes Dvaita Vedanta, dualistic philosophy. It also includes Vishishta Advaita Vedanta. So the purpose of Brahma Sutras is to establish Vedanta, which has got moksha as its goal, to be the predominant feature of the Vedas, predominant message of the Vedas. So when Tattu Samanvayat, here we have to understand, because Shankaracharya wrote the commentary, he is saying it is the identity of Brahman and Atman. But what is meant here is, as he himself says, Purushartha. That is, moksha is what is stressed here. So moksha is the goal of all Vedantic schools, whether they are non-dual, whether they are dualistic, or whether they are Vishishta Advaita, qualified non-dualistic. So whatever school is there, there are supposed to be 40 schools of Advaita Vedanta itself. There are supposed to be 40 more than so many schools of Vedanta. Now, whatever schools are there, all the schools of Vedanta have moksha as the goal. Unlike in Mimamsa, where performing Vedic rituals is the goal. So that is what is the goal of Brahma Sutras, to establish moksha to be the goal of human life. And if you see it in that meaning, it makes sense. Tattu Samanvayat means harmoniously all the Upanishadic statements or all the Vedic statements are taking us towards moksha. Then there is no text torturing. Then it becomes clear. Did that help you?
Yes, Swamiji. Thank you, Swamiji.
Swamiji, one quick question. So when we say, this is Ramya from Bangalore. So when it is said that Shabda Pramana is the only valid thing for the knowledge of Brahman, essentially we are talking about what is actually Aparokshanubhuti for the rishis who have realized, right? So their statements are what forms the Upanishad.
No, we are not talking about Anubhuti. We are talking about means of knowledge.
Okay, but Pramana, when we say Pramana, and we are saying that the other 5 are not valid Pramanas, it is only Shabda Pramana. We are essentially
valid for the purpose of means of knowledge of Brahman. The other 5 are not valid. Or the other 5 are not useful. Because you cannot see, Pratyaksha Pramana is not going to help you. You cannot see that Brahman, by seeing you cannot get the knowledge that Brahman is the cause of the origin or the sustenance or the destruction of this universe, or that Brahman is your true nature. Only through Shabda Pramana you get this. Shabda Pramana means in our case Upanishads or Vedas.
Which is essentially their experience, right? I mean, though we don't know we might not know the names of the authors, but basically it is rishis.
No, but we are not seeing their anubhuti. See, nobody can.
Okay, we are taking their word for it, basically.
That is why the English that's why it's called Shabda Pramana, the Shabda of people who are experts. So we believe that they have experience, and so we go by their word.
And that Shabda Pramana is the only valid Pramana, is applicable only for Brahma Jnana, not for Vedanta
not itself. Not Brahma Jnana, means of knowledge of Brahman, different thing. To know that Brahman exists. Brahma Jnana will come when you do sadhana. Based on this knowledge, when you do sadhana, then you will get Brahma Jnana. That is an Aparokshanubhuti.
Right, okay.
But to just start, you have to know that Brahman is there. How will you know? Only through the Shastras.
So basically we are saying to establish the existence of, to even accept that Brahman exists, this is the only valid Pramana. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
So, okay. Okay, then thank you. We will meet next Monday. Namaste. Shubharatri. Namaste.